Colleagues, once again, hello. We continue with the Russian Donors Forum annual conference. Please remember to send in your questions through our chat box. We start the next session where we'll talk about the NGO sector in the post-COVID era, fundraising, foundations, perspective. I give the floor now to Dmitry Polikanov, member of the Government's Council for Social Work. Thank you, Sasha. It's great that despite the pandemic and all restrictions, the conference is taking place, and I keep up with it. I see the number of participants, and I see that there is great interest in our conference. I think this online format makes us even more accessible. All those people interested can join us and watch, including international speakers, and that's great. I'm happy to welcome everybody. We have an excellent panel today. Let me first introduce all of our speakers, and then briefly I will explain what we are going to be talking about, and then I'll shut up and let others speak. I'll just moderate. Okay, so we have Faina Zakharova, president of the Lifeline Foundation. We have Irina Bakradze, managing director of the Sunflower Foundation, helping children and adults with impaired immunity. We have Natalia Sokolova, executive director of the Con-nection Deafblind Support Foundation. We have Marina Efimova, executive director of the Life Without Barriers Foundation. So this subject is very relevant because fundraising foundations were at the front line, and we see how difficult it is today for them because corporate donors are focused. We are all following fashion to some extent, so corporate donors are now focused on people sick with COVID-19, providing PPEs, medical equipment, etc. That's the focus dictated by the media, and it had a great effect on corporate CSR. Individual donors are also having economic difficulties. An additional contest introduced by the Presidential Grant Foundation helped a little, and we are very grateful to Absolute and the Petanian Foundation. They too made an important contribution, creating large contests for NGOs during this time. But unfortunately, the fundraising foundations have to continue with their operations, regardless of COVID-19 and the restrictions related to it. At the same time, we all have noticed that there is much more social advertising now. We see more mentions of charitable organizations urging people to help others. Yet there are some logistical issues. It's difficult now to bring people in for surgeries, to provide them with imported pharmaceuticals, etc. So this is what we are going to discuss today, how foundations responded to this situation, what worked, what didn't work, and what is our situation as we enter the fall. We may see the second wave. Some people say it's just the continuation of the first wave, so we'll talk about plans for the future. First, let's go to Faina Zakharova, because I know she has another event coming up, so we'll let Faina go first. So please tell us about Lifeline and how you survived during the spring and what you plan to do in the next few months. Thank you, Dima. Nice to see everybody. Irina, nice to see you. Because we received your wonderful report recently. Actually, I feel awkward talking about this. The first spring phase of the quarantine was pretty active for us. It was during this time that we had plans and we were able to implement them. We brought in some high-tech medical equipment. We managed to do this in time for our sick. Actually, the hospitals we work with, Moscow hospitals and the hospital in Kazan, continued operations. They admitted people with planned surgeries. They kept these two separate, COVID and non-COVID related treatment. There was only one hospital that was closed during this time because it was impossible to bring children there. So we had to suspend our work at that particular hospital. Nevertheless, we were able to deliver some incredible equipment, surgical equipment for the Blokhin Cancer Center. And this is an ultra-advanced medical system. It enables doctors to conduct surgeries in the most non-invasive way. They do it through your nose. This system allows you to reach the remotest, the most difficult places to access for tumors in the brain, in the front lobe. And Dr. Polikanov, who works on this, helped us, and all this equipment was brought in and installed during the quarantine. 27 surgeries are scheduled. The cost of this equipment is about 30 million. We kept working with the Proton Center in St. Petersburg. They also continued with their operations. We mentioned this on social media. We had the 100th patient, and this is when the government offered 1.5 billion rubles for this particular area, 2.5 million rubles per child, and we had 600 children, actually 400 children and 200 adults. So we celebrated having our 100th patient, and then we had some more requests. Currently, we are funding non-malign tumors, benign tumors in the brain. There is no quota for that. Also, during this time, we had a press conference, and Philip supplied a unique MRI machine to Russia, and it was funded by the government, 90%. We added some funds, and eventually we were able to get this equipment. So 673 MRI studies have been conducted, and since we only have one machine like that in Russia, it's a whole different level. The quality of the image is much, much better, so doctors can get a much better idea of the actual situation. So doctors say this even improves their professional skills because you need special training to be able to use this equipment. So this enhances the doctor's quality as well. Also, we responded to calls for help regarding PPE, 8 million. We provided 8 million PPE units for center, and we also provided them with some equipment, monitor. This kind of equipment is not provided by the government at this point, because the government has its own plans and schedule for purchasing equipment. Unfortunately, the situation keeps changing so quickly that the Ministry of Healthcare can't keep up with new developments. They can't keep up with technological advancements. So this is another area where we were quite active. And Kazan, we offered a lot of help in Kazan. So I have to say that as far as fundraising is concerned, the way we operate is our financial year, our fiscal year ends on June 31st. In addition to regular audit, we do an audit by Alpha Bank because they are our primary partner. They provide us with the funds for our administrative costs, for overhead, and they set KPIs for us. And we were very anxious. We had KPI number 3. We need to raise more funds every year than the year before. And despite the difficult situation with the pandemic, we actually were able to raise more funds this year. So we delivered on this particular KPI, and the auditors were happy. All the foundations have noticed that media reports that appeared on television during the pandemic really provided a boost. Normally, if they show a report, say on NTV, we would get an additional 2 or 3 million rubles, but this time we received 6 million rubles after a media report. So viewers really supported the children we presented in these reports. The average donation was a little lower, but the number of donations increased dramatically. Another important factor, corporate giving did not decrease. We have what we call our support group. We have 95 companies supporting us. These are our strategic partners, and many other partners as well did not cut back on their support, because this is a long-term relationship. So we passed through this difficult period quite successfully. Currently, we observe a decline on what we call mass market, the number of people sending in donations through different channels, and the number of donations. Yet the average donation, as strange as it might seem, went up recently. And of course, we are moving toward the digital marketing. Everybody's working from home these days, so we can all work from home, 100% of our employees, even though currently 30% of our employees work from home and 70% work from the office. And we even had some successful offline events. Just recently we had an event where we raised about 1 million rubles, and this was important. We were able to reset all of our processes. We are ready, even if there is a new lockdown. I hope, of course, that this won't happen. And we've got a few very interesting projects in our pipeline. And they're going to be fully digital. So this is our priority today. Okay, great, Faina. I have two questions for you. Number one, since you and I used to work together at the Ministry of Healthcare's Public Council, do you believe we can use this pandemic to resolve some systemic problems? And did your foundation have any experience getting a good systemic solution from the government during these months? Okay, let me tell you what we have prepared. I don't know what the outcome will be. Our experience shows that protocol therapy is almost something that people do in the final stages. Unfortunately, children get into this proton therapy when it's too late. Often it's too late. So we prepared a letter asking the authorities to review the protocols and take into account our experience, not just ours, the experience of the proton center. This therapy, it shouldn't be used with all children, but if it's indicated, this therapy should be introduced at an earlier stage. Children should be sent to the proton center at an earlier stage. I don't know what the outcome will be. We haven't received a response to our letter, but there was a meeting of the Public Council. Currently, people are just giving their reports, but I think I'm 100% sure we, as a professional healthcare foundation, we have to work with the Ministry of Healthcare, and everything we do, we have to do in partnership with them. We do need working interaction with the healthcare ministry, so this would be very important. If, let's say, the Donors Forum or somebody else, maybe we could write a letter together. I think it's easier to go through the Public Council. Maybe have a special meeting of the Public Council. You have people, 99% of them are boys, and you know, the Donors Forum is preparing a study on the subject, so I think we need to draft a letter, an appeal. Yeah, we can do that, or I don't know what's the best option. Maybe I could talk to some people, and we should send this letter to the chairman of the Public Council at the Healthcare Ministry, where we would identify the problems that we would like to see resolved, or at least discussed together. I think this would be a nice option. I agree. This is something where different foundations can join their efforts regarding cancer. And my second question to you, tell us about your negative experiences. What did not work? It's great to hear your positive stories, long-term relationships, etc., etc. Now give us some failures. Well, we had plenty of failures. Our foundation does a lot of things offline, so we weren't able to have our offline runs. We had to scrap another event. Life is no small thing. And still, some people still would come to our office and bring things. So we had to cancel a few large events that we had scheduled. we had to move certain things online or cancel some things. I see. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's move on to our next speaker now. Faina represented a nationwide foundation, and now we'll go to a local foundation, Marina Efimova, Life Without Barriers. Marina, could you please tell us about the situation in Nizhny Novgorod? Local authorities introduced some barriers. People were not free to enter Nizhny Novgorod. So how did you deal with the situation? Hello, I'm happy to see everybody. I think we're living in difficult times again. We have to learn to work fast because we are entering a new era. We are entering the second wave. During the first wave, it was like wartime. Early in the morning, you had to get up and take some food and deliver food to people in need. Let me cover a couple of points, what worked and what didn't work. We are a relatively small foundation compared to nationwide foundations, but we do some important things in our territory. We work with people, children in orphanages and difficult teenagers. We work with hooligans. So what did we do during the pandemic? 99% of what we did was offline. And how did we respond? We were one of the first organizations in Nizhny Novgorod to switch to online, because all the orphanages we work with were closed. There was absolutely no access in some cases. Others initially let people in, but eventually all those orphanages closed access. And we had to come up with some interesting ideas that we could implement online. We did not shut down any of our projects. We were able to come up with new, interesting, cool programs to get teenagers interested. So that's teenagers, our programs for teenagers in orphanages. We launched 2 new projects to support the parents of teenagers and to support specialists working with children in orphanages and other specialists in the education system and in the social services system. We launched 2 new large online courses for them. It was from April to June, and it was really cool. People who got registered for courses for parents later on would sign up for courses for specialists. So during the pandemic, we established a community of parents and specialists, a community of people who really care. So during this short break between the 2 waves of the pandemic, we were able to work offline for a short time, and these people would come to our events, and it was really great that during this time we were able to build a team of these people. So we responded very quickly. Next, supporting families. Here in Nizhny Novgorod, we have over 1,500 families whose children are registered with the Dysfunctional Families Commission. And we prepared a special event. We called it Time to Help. We raised over 1 million rubles, and starting April 20th, we would deliver food to these families based on their requests. We worked closely with the Dysfunctional Families Commission. They would identify the families in need, and we would deliver food to those families. Delivered food to over 2,000 children. We went through 49 out of 52 cities of Nizhny Novgorod. And this was a very important event for us. We worked together with the United Russia's Volunteer Center. And actually, I'm not a political person, but this event was not about politics. It was about people. Because everybody participated. Our governor, Gleb Nikitin, donated his salary for May to this event. We also had members of the local government and the regular household contributing. And we had huge donations and small donations of just 100 rubles. So it was very similar to wartime, when people come together, step up and help to those in need. To our foundation, this event was also very important. We got a lot of good partners. They're our friends now. And we all work together now. One more important event that I would like to mention, I would even call this a miracle. Things like that don't normally happen. Everything was closed, but starting on May 9th and until last week, we repaired the only mentorship center for difficult teenagers we had in Nizhny Novgorod. We had the official opening in February, and now we are able to receive small groups of teenagers here. People are not allowed to leave their homes, and we have complete lockdown. And still, we were able to continue with this construction project. We finished building our center, and we became a catalyst. There is a small neighborhood around 10 buildings. These are buildings where people live, and they built 2 playing grounds and did some landscaping, and this whole neighborhood looks much nicer now. Initially, this place looked quite grim. It's on the outskirts of the city, and now we have this hooligan house. It's like a very bright spot in the middle of this gray area. And we didn't have any funds for that, but it was a miracle. It was a coincidence. We found the contractor, and they fully built this building for us, the hooligan house. And now we can train our mentors there, we can support our specialists working with difficult teenagers. And we can now have a special space for this kind of children. And if you ever come to Nizhny Novgorod, please visit us. We will receive you in this house. We have rooms there. We will tell you about our program. So very briefly, I think this is it. Oh, another point I would like to mention, this is also very important. We started a new area of helping families in crisis. This new area came out of this other project I mentioned earlier, Time to Help. We worked with teenagers, and then 2 years ago we started working with the parents. We did some courses for parents, and now we launched a new program, Life Without Barriers. We will work on prevention of social orphan situations. And we will also have a graduates club, so we have the complete set now. And I think it is all because of this difficult period. We were able to go through it without suffering major losses. On the contrary, this time was very important for our foundation. I guess it's out of fear that we started even quicker. We realized that we need to work faster, work better, and as a result, we made a giant leap forward. It was a giant leap for us and for the people we work with. Okay, thank you. Could you share your secret, how you were able to get the governor involved in your project? Our governor is an amazing person. He's a very good person. He knows how to talk to people. He's not a bureaucrat. He knows how to get things done. His wife supports our teenagers, our hooligans, and they love her. And she doesn't care if they're hooligans. They do a lot of things together. They go on runs together. And it is really important. This family, the Nikitins, our territory, Nizhny Novgorod, we used to be very slow and quite tough on people, tough on children, but gradually, the situation is changing. Things are improving. And even some ladies working in social services have learned to talk nicely to these children. And they realize now that we should care about people first and foremost. So if we have more families like the Nikitins, I think the situation will improve. We'll move on from a formal approach to real care. And we built our center so that we could, all sorts of people coming here, regardless of their social level. Okay, but the second wave is coming, and I think there will be another lockdown. Are you prepared? Are you ready for that? Or will you face certain difficulties when it comes? We do have some institutions in Nizhny Novgorod that we can visit as volunteers and NGOs. Then there are some orphanages that are completely closed for visitation. And I agree with that, because I can't test every mentor. Risks are great, and we have a large number of cases in Nizhny Novgorod. So we came up with all sorts of interesting ideas online. We want to keep it interesting. You know, when teenagers learn from home, they don't want to sit in front of their computers anymore. It's too boring for them. So we had to come up with something interesting. For example, we did a cooking show. We explained to them how you can purchase certain products worth 500 rubles and you can cook lunch for 4 persons. And we would either record those videos or do it live, and we would send it to children in orphanages, and they would do the same thing. They would try cooking this lunch. So this was interesting. We got this going, and we did this challenge. So we have a program ready for teenagers, an online program, and then we'll also have a mentorship course in the fall in Nizhny Novgorod. Last year we had a mentorship contest for best practices. Turns out there are a lot of very good mentors in Nizhny Novgorod province. They do it for free just because they're enthusiasts, and I want everybody to learn more about these people. We want to present these people, share their experiences, and of course we can't gather 200 or 300 people this year, so we decided we'll have this contest online, and then we'll deliver gifts and certificates after the event. So we are not going to suspend anything, any of our planned programs. It's just that we had a major event planned, something we have been doing for 5 years. That's a huge contest for orphanage graduates and hooligans. Last year, it was part of the Russia Sports Nation Festival, and this is a large-scale event for our territory. And this year is the first time I have the situation where I've got the funds and I can't spend them. So we're looking forward to a time when we can organize this huge athletic event. And you know, of course, that teenagers don't just compete there. They also participate in the social project contest. They prepare social projects and present them. And the winner gets 10,000 rubles. And then they use this money, 10,000 rubles, to do something incredible. And then they report, show their results, show their videos. So I would like to see all of you visit us in Nizhny Novgorod. Okay, great. Traditional question. What did not work out? Where did you fail because of COVID? Apart from what you already told us, when you had money and you could not spend it. I think this is the problem that many people face today, because this money is earmarked for a particular project and you can't implement this project right now. So you can't spend this money on something else. It was very difficult for us to lose some of our people working at our foundation during the initial days, first few weeks. It was pretty difficult when the key donor left our foundation, because this was a difficult period, and we had the lockdown. It was difficult on everybody, so it was really hard on us. Yet we were able to replace this player with 4 other players, so I guess it worked out for the best, but it was hard. I mean, on a personal level, to our whole team, it was difficult for us to take this, but now it's okay. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, let's move on. We have a Con-nection Foundation, and I personally work with deafblind people, and of course, they're not the key audience during the COVID era, although there are a lot of older people in this category. So, Natalia Sokolova, could you please tell us how you survived during this period? Hello, thank you, Dmitry, for your questions. Well, the people we care for were not part of COVID-related programs, yet these are people who live in a state of lockdown. So we learned from them. We learned about being able, resilience, surviving. We continued our operation. It was important for us to keep our employees and to continue to keep up the level of support we provide. The title of this session is Post-COVID Era, and we are not there yet. We're still in the COVID era. And still, I can tell you that we saw some new opportunities during this time. We focused on fine-tuning our internal processes. And we are about to complete a project to automate all of our financial processes. We started this back in November 2019, planning our expenses, approving requests for payments, approving contracts, all of these back office matters. And when we implemented this project, we were able to work quickly during the pandemic, because all of our managers now can work from home, and we have a common platform. We can send in requests for payments And there is no need for accountants or managers to be in the office. All of this can be done remotely. This includes projects on accessibility, and we were one of the first NGOs in Russia, or maybe the first even, I don't know, or one of the few, at least, that implemented such a complex project where all the employees can use modern technology, and now our back office is completely fine-tuned. We also added another function. It is now possible to get an approval through a mobile app. And we also set up a registry of payments. And you can now do all this regardless of where you are. All you need is a cell phone. So as far as our back office is concerned, we had to make some personnel changes to improve the efficiency of our operation. So currently, our foundation has some unique expertise as far as automation of internal business processes is concerned, and this really improved our efficiency. So we didn't have any delays. On the contrary, all people on our team agreed that we are now able to work very conveniently, very fast, regardless of where you are. As far as our programs are concerned, of course, we had to rethink many of the things we do because it's impossible to move all the things online because we work with deafblind people. Yet, when the quarantine started, we did our best to keep supplying information to the people we care for. Not all of them were able to watch news on television or read things on the internet. We noticed something. We saw that when the president speaks or members of the government speak, there is no sign language translation provided. And 18 times the president of Russia, the mayor of Moscow, the governor of Moscow province, and the chief sanitary inspector, we translated their speeches into the Russian Sign Language and published those videos online. We received a lot of comments, even from people who are not deafblind, just people with hearing impairments. A lot of people watched those videos and reposted them, and we got a very positive response. Also, we joined the We're Together program by the People's Front and offered our assistance. Together with our partners, we provided some food all over Russia. Our people, the people we care for, were able to receive some help. Now, regarding moving to online, all the courses we had, all the plans we had for offline activities, whatever could be transferred to online, we made all those things freely available. Some of the projects were recorded, some of the webinars, and those things will now be available forever. We also uploaded some methodology recommendations online. We realized that we need a website, a nationwide website for people with visual and hearing impairments. So this will be our key project for 2021. We are currently looking for funding, and we were able to get some grants for this project. And still, we see that not all of the people are completely happy with online projects alone, and they want us to offer them some offline courses, educate them about using online technology, computer literacy classes, Braille, etc., etc. Even our creative projects too were moved to online. We had a few performances even. We were able to record those, and some of them are now available on the internet. It was really interesting. People could watch this on social media, so work did not stop at all. And yet there were certain difficulties with working online, because the people we care for need personal contact. They want to get out of their apartments. They want to get new impressions, new sensations. And our centers in various territories, of course, they had to consider the situation in this particular territory because before they had an offline event, before they get people together. So they were very cautious when doing something offline. Also, our assisted living project in the Moscow province and in St. Petersburg province, all of our employees showed real understanding. We have 5 people in the Moscow province. They went into self-isolation together with their employees for 5 months. They would stay even at their apartment or at a special summer house or in an assisted living facility, observing all the regulations and all the restrictions. So this was a very humane approach, because people trust each other. So, generally speaking, this is how we were able to survive, and these are the new opportunities that we saw. So we'll just keep on working. We are making plans for 2021, considering our new situation, new experience, and we realize that most of our programs will have to be online now. You mentioned this automation system. Is it pretty unique, or can it work for other foundations as well? Is this something that you can share with others and they could easily apply it to their situation? No, of course. And that's why we started this project, because we wanted to create a ready solution and share it with others so other foundations could do the same. Because we have extensive experience now, we have extensive expertise, and we can get all the bugs out. We did this during the quarantine when work is kind of slow, and we were able to fix all the little problems, iron out all the small problems. So we have a good tested product ready to be applied elsewhere. Great. Now tell us what didn't work. Give us some failures. Some of your plans that didn't work out. Maybe it will work out during the fall. I don't know. Well, our key donors are companies, not mass fundraising, because the things we do require systemic help, not just medical services. And many companies had to address the COVID situation, so their focus has shifted. So now we need to find a compromise between what the donors want to do, and we, on the other hand, still have to take care of our people. So we need to find the proper balance. And the second thing, offline events. Between the two waves, we implemented some offline events, but we had major events planned. Youth conference, we had some events planned for deafblind people who are members of the Deafblind Association. And they should be able to discuss all of their issues together. We had some creative events planned, and we had to postpone all this and move these things to online or postpone. I guess it's pretty similar to the situation that the other foundations had. It's all in a different format now, or postponed. Okay, thank you very much. We move on to Irina Bakradze now. Irina, could you please share your experience? What worked? What didn't work? How did you survive the summer? Hello, colleagues. Thank you, Dmitry. You know, I'm very happy to hear all this. You sound very positive, and it's really great. This indicates that you're in good shape. And like I said at the opening session and before that, the pandemic, I think, apart from all the other things, produced a very positive, lasting effect. The NGO sector was at the front line and shouldered a large part of the burden, and it presented itself to the people in a completely different way. It emerged as a powerful tool for addressing social issues. So we definitely deserve to sound positive, and I'm proud to say that we were able to go through this difficult period and emerge from it in a very good shape. On the other hand, as I was listening to you, I was remembering those months, March and April, and actually it looked much scarier. It didn't look so good. And this was a terrible crisis, actually. And we could never imagine we would go through something like that. And this requires very good risk management. But I'd like to repeat what others said. This applies to our foundation and many others. Our foundation, Sunflower, we were able to go through this period without any losses. Actually, it was quite seamless. We moved to the remote format seamlessly. We did not suspend or cancel any of our projects. We continued providing assistance to people as before. Actually, we increased the volume of support and added some new areas. We started supporting some clinics that were our partners. We started supporting patients, doctors, started offering legal services. We added a new area of mental support, psychological support. We assisted clinics with new routing systems for patients so they don't overlap. Of course, we had to rethink many of our long-term programs, working with patients, etc., etc. But like I said, this did not affect the overall amount and quality of the help we provide. Our key problems were related to our counterparts, primarily the government, because the government as a system was to a large extent not ready for such a drastic change. For example, we work in healthcare, and I think it's pretty obvious to everybody that many hospitals were closed or they had to be remodeled to receive COVID patients, and many people who require regular medical help ended up in a difficult situation, so we had to help with routing, and we saw the logistics systems collapse. This affected issues with many of our partners, because these are large corporations, they had difficulties of their own. So most of our problems were related to these difficulties on the side of our counterparts. I can tell you a lot of things about all the good things we did, and it's really nice. But I realize that this session is primarily for sharing our experiences and coming up with constructive solutions. So I would like to share the lessons we learned and some proposals that we have. First, when I say that we were able to transition to a new format seamlessly, let me explain how we did this at the Sunflower Foundation. First of all, we had very strict financial planning, internal analysis. We have something we have been doing for many years. This works like clockwork. It doesn't really matter if you're an NGO or a foundation. At the times of a crisis, it's really important to make sure your financial system works. Second, a hybrid format for your team. For over 3 years now, our team works in this format. Depending on what it is you do specifically, you may work in the office all the time, or you can work remotely. In the past, people still had to attend some offline meetings regularly. What are the advantages of the hybrid format? We all learned to use communication tools. We had online meetings. And moving on to the next important point, I can say that all mechanisms for cloud communications were in place. Digitization, using task management tools, you can monitor goal-setting process, work on documents, etc., etc. And of course, it's really important to focus on team building, team development. I always say that the situation with the pandemic made it very clear that organizations can go through such difficult periods if they have a strong team. And it depends very much on the efficiency of your team. The outcome will very much depend on that. And we have programs for developing risk management skills. We have regular events. We have KPIs, and all this really helped. This makes our team strong, well-built, and resilient, so you can survive such difficult periods. Now, a few lessons that we learned. First of all, what did we learn and what proposals we have? I think you will all agree that financial uncertainty is the biggest problem for NGOs. This is something we always talk about. We understand that this has a very big effect on our activities. You can't always foresee whether you will receive enough donations. And yet, rule number one is strict financial planning and diversifying your portfolio of stakeholders. These are the ABCs of the NGO sector. And still, quite often we forget about this. Whereas this is really important. And again, the current crisis made it very clear that many organizations depend too much on a single source of donations. And of course, all fundraising foundations saw a decline of personal donations. We also had many events planned for April, and we had to cancel many of those events. So, if you depend too much on one single source, this is a very risky situation. My second point, and this is more of a systemic issue, we certainly need to move on from project funding to funding the mission of an organization, moving to institutional support. And in the previous session where we had grant-making foundations, they mentioned this as well. I really appreciated that, and we see this trend. We see that many corporate donors and large foundations, they shift their focus in their support toward institutional support. This is really important. Of course, this is not to say that grants don't work. We have plenty of grants in our portfolio. And yet, we realize that in order to implement long-term projects, grants are insufficient. And another point, grants quite often require that this is something that is not part of your core activities. And this sounds absurd to me. Our core activity is exactly what produces a lasting effect. No other project that is non-core can't exist without your core operations. So, to me, this is clearly a contradiction. And I hope that this gets fixed. And it's great that we see some progress being made by grant-making organizations and our corporate partners. With many of them, we have a long-standing, trusting relationship. We can plan for the future. We can make plans for many years ahead. And the company does not just provide financial support. There is mutual work on a project. We are sharing our expertise. We get the donor involved in designing the program, evaluating it, analyzing it. The government is lagging behind at this point, behind corporates and foundations. So I really hope that the government catches up in terms of financial support for NGOs. I hope they catch up with other stakeholders. And the third very important point that I would like to make, and I think it is particularly relevant in Russia, targeted support for NGOs in situations where charitable foundations perform the function of replacing the government when necessary. Let me explain what I mean. In most countries, the idea is philanthropy covers the areas where there is no government support. In Russia, it's a little different. Yes, we do a lot of things in the areas where the government does nothing. Yet, very often, charitable organizations have to offer emergency relief in situations when a person does not receive aid from the government, not because there are no government funds available, but because the system malfunctions. Well, let me give you an example from our experience, from our foundation. We have a targeted help program, and about 50% of cases where people do not receive special pharmaceuticals, it's not because the government does not provide them, it's just because the system malfunctioned, because of some administrative or logistical issues. So we're dealing with a situation where government funds are available. This money has been provided, it's allocated, it's earmarked, and yet people are unable to get help. That's where foundations have to come in. And it is appropriate for them to do so. So we suggest a mechanism where a foundation can get reimbursed for the money spent on this particular person. We need government guarantees for reimbursement, because otherwise we have to appeal to people, to society, and ask for the same money twice. I'm talking about the areas where government funds have been provided. And I believe this approach will strengthen interaction between NGOs and the government. And of course, in many areas, we already work closely, very well. And this will make the NGO sector more accountable. It is not our mission to replace the government. On the contrary, we should be able to see the areas where there are problems and respond to them, offer solutions. And then we should offer this solution to the government, so our solution could be rolled out to other places. I guess that's all I have for right now. Okay, I would like to comment on what you said regarding the government. The government, even if it has allocated some funds, it's often reluctant to share this money with others. And what you said about institutional support is really important, moving from project funding to institutional support. This will depend on trust a lot, of course, because project-based approach, the reason for it is because there was a lot of distrust toward NGOs. You don't know how this money will be spent. If it's project-based, you can at least get the report and see how they spent this money. But since we see that the role of the NGO sector is changing, like you said, maybe the time has come to move on to the next stage. And probably we now have a pool of organizations that are ready, that can ready to work long term, and we can be sure that this money will not be mismanaged. I have a question for all of you. We started talking about the government. Did any of you receive government aid, any support from the government? Maybe the government helped you with your donors, with the tax benefits, tax deductions. Did any of you receive any aid from the government during this time? Do you have any positive or negative experience? Well, I can tell you straight away, the changes that were made to the tax code, first of all, we've been waiting for them for so long. They were very welcome. And of course, immediately we told all of our partners about these changes. And we do have some new partners, new donors, who, after they clarified that we are part of this registry and our foundation is eligible for tax deductions, they started working with us. So this, of course, was a positive development for us. Okay, great. Marina, what about you? Did you? Your mic is on mute. No, we did not receive anything. We were too busy. Really. I understand, of course, that this is cool and great, but we had this huge construction project underway, and I had to take care of construction all the time. Natalia, what about you? We got a loan from Sberbank, and all of our affiliates tried to do the same. Not all of them succeeded, but we did. We got a loan, and we already spent all this money. Okay, we have a question in the chat box. Yes, exactly. That's the same question about government support during the pandemic. So do you think the government did enough or too much? What do you think about government support during the pandemic? Did the government help you? What is your impression? But since half of you say you did not use government aid, I guess the government did not do enough, did not push all the right buttons. No, of course this was good. We did not get a loan, but the benefits that they offered on insurance and that's always good. Any kind of aid is good. I always say that it doesn't really matter what it is or how much. It is always good. Of course, the degree of how much it changed the situation, will this kind of aid rescue you or not, is a question. But it's good to have a cushion. Okay, I see Sasha on the screen right now, and this means that we have to wrap up. So let me give a brief overview. I think this was a very good discussion, and we definitely identified some key points that we can include in our work. Number one, if you have automated your processes, your financial, managerial, administrative, back office processes, this means you can pass through a crisis with fewer difficulties. The second key point, I think all of you mentioned, it was really important to work with your team, make sure your people stay with you or you get new people on board. And it's really important to learn to set goals and monitor their implementation online using Zoom and other tools, using task management systems. And I think this was another important lesson we have all learned, and this will definitely benefit us going forward. Point number 3, offline events. And I think we won't have any offline events anytime soon, maybe until next spring or maybe even longer. So it's important to do your best to shift certain things to online, like Marina said, or like what Natalia said, educational programs. People should not get bored with a large number of online events. They should not get disinterested due to the lack of offline events. The next important point, donors have to be more flexible. If it's government funds or money coming from large donors, this money may be designated for a particular project and you can't implement this project because of the pandemic. This means you have to postpone the project. So on the one hand, you have a lot of money in your account, and yet this money is earmarked for a particular purpose and you can't spend this money on anything else. And as a result, it looks like you have no money, even though technically speaking you have lots of money. And one more point mentioned by Irina, foundations that substitute the government. We really need to start this dialogue. We need to explain to the government that if a foundation performs some functions for the government, we should be reimbursed. We should get at least some of the money that the government had allocated for this purpose and was unable to spend. And this is something new, something interesting that we should work on. So these are the things I wrote down, and my notepad is full. So thank you very much for you were not complaining, because people like to complain and say this is the end of the world, this is the end, but you gave us some positive examples, and I think this will inspire other participants in this conference. Alexandra, it's 13:14 on my clock and we are done. Thank you. Being so punctual online, people are more punctual online than there are offline. And it's great because we have this huge audience, a lot of people listening to us. Thank you for moderating this session. Faina had a question at the beginning of your session for the Donors Forum, and I can tell you that we'll be happy to work together with you, and we will help you in your dialogue with the government. And we will continue working on that with the new board. Thank you very much for your participation. This was really interesting. Little by little, we are starting posting links to our next session. The next session will be a pre-recorded interview with our good friend, director of the Oxford Institute. He did a study on COVID using his own material, and he shared his views with us. So we will be happy if you listen to this interview. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.